Attack on Titan, the final season part 2, episode 77, Sneak Attack has finally arrived, and how does it compare to the manga?
Shut up and sit down.
Yo, what's good? It's the boy Dude Reviews and heavy spoilers for episode 77 Sneak Attack and chapter 117, 118 and the first few pages of chapter 119. You have been warned. Let's get on with this breakdown. First up, we've got Niccolo and the Browse family. Kaya is actually just slightly hiding behind Sasha's mom, but in the manga she's nowhere to be seen. Next up, we got our boy Jean talking about Eren. Armin is actually still in this shot with him, but in the anime, they just have a solo close-up shot of his gloriously drawn face. Armin's face is more straight on versus in the manga. Instead of the viewer being able to see him holding his arms, the shot actually cuts down to the top part of his shoulders. Much prefer this shot in the anime versus the manga of him looking determined to try and protect Eren. Armin's face in the manga look more or less the same actually, except that his eyes were a little bit wider in the anime. Plus, you get more streak lines going down his eye sockets. Mikasa's character design looks slightly different from anime to manga. Plus, she looks a little bit sad in the anime version. Mappa animated Connie putting his hand on his head before he starts talking about not getting the chance to beat up Eren. Onyankopon is actually standing behind a wall versus the manga version where we don't really know what the background is, it's just all grey. The Browse family and the scouts running up the stairs has actually been extended, so we actually get a little bit more moments with the characters as they're just running up the stairs. The conversation between Armin and Mikasa is slightly changed and more or less the same in certain angles. We get a shot of Mikasa's butt versus the shot where Mikasa looks at Armin in the manga version. Next, instead of a head-on shot of Mikasa, we get a side view of her face looking upwards. We see more of Armin's face in this shot. The expressions in the anime versus the manga are a lot more extreme and pushed, and his face is a little bit longer and just makes him look older in the anime. The shot's been reversed. Instead of this back view of both Mikasa and Armin, we now get a front diagonal view of Mikasa and Armin running up the never-ending stairway. I prefer the look Mikasa gave in this shot. Yeah, Armin's face is a little bit jokery. You're not 100% sure as to how Mikasa is feeling in the anime version versus the manga. She kind of looks a bit depressed. I love the dramatic perspective, high angle view of Mikasa and Armin as they're walking up the stairway. Next up, we've got this shot of Eren punching Galliard from the side. The Warhammer Titan spear is a lot more pointier and larger. We get a full shot of Reiner gritting his teeth in the anime version versus a side shot where we don't really see his right eye. Plus, the anime makes his Titan markings more apparent and visible. Next up, we've got a shot of Reiner about to take a big chump out of Eren Yeager. We see more buildings in the background, but I did like the art in the manga version. This shot of Reiner is a little bit better in the manga. His expressions are way more wild, although I do like how they kept it faithful in terms of still adding the gore, but they added a little bit too much smoke emitting from his armor titan. Damn son, the manga version wins in this round with Eren glaring up at Reiner. Look at the art in that manga, but we don't see most of his face in the anime for some reason. This scene with Eren ripping Reiner's jaw is a lot more visceral and violent in the manga versus the anime. We don't actually see his entire jaw falling down. Yeah, the anime is better in this shot. His expressions are a lot more clearer, but in the manga there were so many streak lines that it completely covered that beautiful Shingeki no Kyojin. The two men standing next to Yelena are completely gone in the anime version. It's just her with the building in the background. Way more detail on Reiner's Titan markings on his face compared to that manga version. Colt and Gabby are slightly repositioned in the anime version versus the manga where they're covering their ears. Also, you see the soldiers in the background also cover their ears as well. Love the shadow on the anime version of Magav, and you get to see his gun as well. Eren going rage mode in this scene is beautifully adapted from the manga. I love how they kept the energy, the Shingeki no Kyojin ripping the armor tie-in off and then him getting blasted by the beast tie-in. Slightly different. The manga made this scene a little bit more clearer. Damn son, Mappa made that Warhammer Titan spear way more pointier and sharper. And it's only one spear versus the 4 other spears in the manga version. You actually see more of Eren Eren's mouth in this shot and his Titan marking veins, and he does look a lot more startled in the anime. The shot with Yelena looking up at the glorious Beast Titan is slightly different. Manga's expressions are a little bit more wild in the anime version. Both anime and manga of Eren looking up at the Beast Titan are both beautiful. I do love the lighting in the anime, and I love how gigantic those Warhammer Titan spears are in the anime. This shot of the Monkey Man throwing the boulders looks the same. MAPPA added more shadow and smoke covering that glorious Beast Titan design. MAPPA went for a slightly wider shot of the Beast Titan's head versus this super Titan close-up shot. Plus, more smoke covering that glorious Beast Titan art. The shot of Big Brother helping out Little Brother is pretty damn good. I do love both shots, except that Eren's face is a little bit smaller in the anime. My boy looks way more frightened and scared and startled. MAPPA went for a 360 view of Zeke throwing those boulders towards the Malian blimps, allowing us to see that great Beast Titan behind. Slight different cuts and angles of the anime version versus the manga of the blimps being destroyed by the boulders. We actually see more of Manga sitting on top of Peak's gun machinery. Next up we have got a close-up shot of Peak's face. Damn, Studio MAPPA really went all out with that Peak butt action. Damn, what a shame we don't get to see Zeke Yeager's Beast Titan thick legs. MAPPA were in favour of a side angle view of Peak versus the front angle shot of Peak. I much prefer the manga version of her expressions. I think the manga version was a little bit more dramatic when it came to the Beast Titan throwing those boulders towards the Car Titan. I do like this version in the anime with this slight Dutch angle side view of Peak versus that front angle shot, but I do like that expression in the manga. Manga is tilting in the anime versus the manga. Flock's hair looks like it's really flapping in the wind in the manga versus in the anime. A pan-up shot was used in the anime with Eren trying to get himself up while Reiner being down on the ground. I did prefer the manga because we get to see more detail on the Armor Titan. More smoke equals more censoring of Eren's gouged out eye. Plus, we don't see those Warhammer Titan spikes in the anime. The Beast Titan looking way more serious in the anime versus the manga, where he kinda looks a bit cheeky. The anime did not include the Beast Titan sitting on the wall. Also, the soldiers were pointing their guns in the manga, but in the anime, they're not. Colt and Gabby's character design are very different in the anime versus the manga. Plus, Gabby is gripping on Colt's arm. You have Colt looking down in the anime versus the manga. The scene of Gabby and Colt talking to one another is cut in two different scenes. The star on Colt's helmet looks a lot bigger in the manga versus the anime. We see a bit more of Gabby's shoulders in the anime. We see a lot more military police banging on the door versus the anime, where there are only 3 of them. Also, the entire shot has been completely flipped around. You see 2 military police soldiers standing in front of Niall and Falco. You get a wide shot of Niall talking to Falco, and you get to see some more of the background. The anime shows Niall in a more side angle view. I like how we see Niall's face in the manga version, but in the anime we just see his back. Falco looks a little older in this shot in the manga versus the anime, where he's got more chubby cheeks. In the manga, Connie was the one in front of the whole gang, but in the anime, it's Jean who's leading the pack. Plus, there's only 1 Jaegerist versus the 3 other ones in the manga. This shot of Jean gripping the Jaegerist by the collar is a little bit different. It's flipped around. We see more of Jean's face instead of the Jaegerists, as well as Connie and Sasha's family standing in the background. But in the anime, they're nowhere to be seen. Connie is standing outside as he's telling the Jaegerists to open the cells, but in the manga it looks like he's still inside the castle. We don't actually see Jean in the anime version letting out some of the prisoners. The anime shows Connie opening the cell door to look at Commander Keith Sadis, but in the manga he just turns his head around. Plus, we get to see some more people in the background. Connie is not in shot in the anime versus the manga. Plus, Keith is also leaning towards the wall, and you get to see a window. I think MAPPA minimized the amount of bruises and scars on Keith's face in the anime versus the manga because he looks completely bloodied up. Pixis actually looks a little bit taller in the anime versus the manga, and Jean and Connie are in a different angle in the anime. Isayama went above and beyond the Call of Duty, making Pixis' head as big as he could in this shot, but in the anime they really reduced it. You see more of the garrison in the manga, but in the anime you see more military police guys. But in this panning up shot of Pixis looking at everyone, there does seem to be more people in the anime versus the manga. We see Mikasa's behind in the manga, but in the anime we get full frontal great MAPPA art of Mikasa's face and Louise standing right behind her. Plus, it's cool that the anime actually really showed Mikasa gearing up for battle. Both versions of Mikasa turning around at Louise look beautiful. Louise and Mikasa have been completely flipped around in the anime versus the manga. Mikasa uses both hands to gently place her scarf onto the table versus the one hand in the manga. Mappa reused this shot once again as Louisa is talking about Mikasa leaving her scarf behind. Mikasa's face is more in the middle. The manga, she's way more on the right hand side, and you get to see the scarf in the same shot. You actually see Louise looking at the scarf in the manga, but in the anime we don't actually see any shots of the scarf on the table. Louise is looking into nothing in the anime. Yeah, the manga wins for me with this dramatic shot of Mikasa, Armin, Jean and Connie walking up the staircase. I love the perspective shot and the angle. Yelena doing a Titanic pose on top of the castle is way more dramatic in the manga, but in the anime she looks way more gentle and elegant. But do you know what? She looks more like a fallen angel. Plus the blimps are way more smaller in the anime, but in the manga you really see how close they are to the ground. Yelena looks like she's completely overwhelmed by emotion in the manga, but in the anime she looks kinda psychotic. Our blonde hair, blue eyes boy Armin Arlet looking up at the blimps. We don't see Mikasa, Jean or Connie's faces in this shot. Plus he's looking in a slightly different direction. I do like the way the castle was drawn in the manga versus the anime. We barely get to see it, but Studio Mappa make up for that with beautiful explosion effects. We don't get to see our boys and gal looking at the explosions blowing up the walls, the Shingeki no Kyojin walking like a walker from The Walking Dead. I do like the perspective of the wall with the Beast Titan and the way Eren is walking towards him versus the anime where it's more flat on. The scene with Reiner gearing up and charging to the Shingeki no Kyojin is made a lot more clearer with the anime showing that it was the Beast Titan that threw the rocks and not Eren activating his Warhammer Titan. And damn, I love this 2D shot of the Beast Titan in this perspective, throwing the rocks towards Shinganshina. You really see the destruction of the city. The anime cut Mikasa and Armin and Yelena out of this scene with Jean and Connie talking. You really see the concern in Jean's face in the manga versus the anime. I do like the slight tilt of the head in the anime versus the manga. Plus, we really get to appreciate that great Mappa background sky art. Jean and Connie's reactions are way more extreme and expressive, while Mikasa is still looking dead inside. I do like the anime shot of Armin gritting his teeth. I like the highlights and the coloring and the shading, but I wish we got to see that full face of Armin Arlet. We don't get to see our girl Yelena looking at Armin talking to Mikasa, Jean and Connie. Jean is not present in this shot in the anime, but we do get to see way more wild expressions of Mikasa and Connie. Is it me or do their character designs look a little bit off model? Next up we've got this infamous shot of Armin looking up at Yelena. I did prefer the manga with her just glaring at Armin in that one scene, but in the anime we had a pan up. But still, we did get to see that beautiful Mappa art in this shot. This is probably one of the few times where we do get to see those bold outlines really come to life in the anime. The follow-up shot of Yelena smiling at Armin is a little bit more cute in the manga versus the anime. Plus her face looks a little bit longer in the anime. Damn son, Mappa went all out with that great Mappa art and eye detail of Armin glaring at Yelena. We do not get to see the scouts flying out of the castle towards the battle, but we do get a dramatic shot of one of the blimps crashing down. Colt and Gabby are seen running in the anime versus the manga, where they're just standing and watching this beautiful disaster. But the anime does show an extra scene of their backs turned. Colt's expressions are pretty wild in the manga versus the anime, where he kind of looks a little bit sleepy. The anime shows a lot more houses in a row. You get to see more of the military police in the background in the anime. We get to see more of Gabby's face in the anime versus the manga. Plus Colt's eyes are so wide in the manga. We get to see Falco standing right behind Niall, back to back, but in the anime, they're looking directly in the same direction. The anime changed the shot around with Niall looking at Colt, but this time it's Falco looking at his bro. We see Colt pulling away Gabby from the view of the enemies. In the anime version, Niall's back is completely turned in the manga, but in the anime, both Colt and Falco are standing in the same direction. Perspective is a bit different in the anime versus the manga of Niall dragging Falco away. Slight dialogue change of Colt saying devils to I have got no choice. Plus, Gabby has been removed in the anime. Colt's reaction to Gabby is a lot more expressive in the manga versus the anime. His eyes are so wide in that damn manga panel. Slight angle change of Niall dragging Falco to his brother. Gabby and Colt holding the gun is pointing on the left hand side versus the anime is pointing on the right. Plus, Colt looks a lot more concerned in the manga. A dynamic shot of Niall pushing Falco to his brother versus the anime is more of a side view. Colt has a gun strapped to his back in the manga, but in the anime there's no gun to be seen. Falco is shown waving towards Niall and Colt looking at his brother, but in the anime you just have Falco turn his head. But at least they still included Niall waving back at Falco in the anime, but you barely see my boy. Slight angle change of Colt hugging Falco, plus you still get to see that big gun strapped to Colt's back. You have Colt directly looking at Gabby versus the anime. You get a close-up shot of Gabby's expressions in the anime versus the manga. Plus she's tilting her head in the anime. And you get to see Papa Browse and Niccolo in the background. This scene of Gabby listening to Papa Browse is completely flipped around and her expressions are a little bit more clear in the anime. You get a full shot of Papa Browse and his family with Niccolo outside versus just Papa Browse and Niccolo in the anime. We see the family in the view of the windows from inside of the building. Falco looks at Gabby in the anime versus the manga. We just get a close-up shot of Gabby tearing up while Falco has completely been removed. Colt is the one to warn Gabby to stay put, but in the manga it's actually Falco who says it. We get to see Gabby's reaction in the anime of Kaya talking badly about her and Falco, but I like how it cuts to a full shot of Kaya's face through the window. Mappa made this scene of Gabby looking down really dramatic with the window behind her. You see a lot of bird cages in the anime, but in the manga they're nowhere to be seen. Both shots of Gabby tearing up look pretty great, but I do like how we see more of Gabby's head in the anime. We don't get to see Gabby and Falco in this shot, it's just Colt. Plus he's looking at the two Eldian kids instead of looking towards the door. I really love how beautifully drawn this shot was of Falco looking at Gabby. We get a super wide shot of Gabby talking. We get a close-up of Falco and Colt looking at Gabby versus the manga, it was just one shot of her. And again, we get to see a lot more bird cages in this scene. We don't get to see Colt or Falco's reaction to Gabby. Slight angle difference between Falco in the anime. We don't get to see the window in the anime, but in the manga we do. Love the detail in Falco's eyes in the anime. We see Falco gripping the black armband in the anime, plus a close-up shot of Falco talking and a bunch of bird cages as well. We don't see Falco in the same shot as Gabby and Colt. We only get to see the top of Gabby's head as Falco is confessing his love for her. We get to see both of Gabby's eyes in the anime, but in the manga we just get to see one. Colt's back is in frame in the manga, but in the anime it's a wide shot with more bird cages. Falco is seen in the anime, but in the manga we just get to see Colt and Gabby. I love Gabby's expression in the anime versus the manga of her blushing towards Falco. Falco's face is a little bit more expressive and emotive in the anime versus the manga. Damn, this shot is pretty much more or less the same from anime to manga. We get a close-up shot of Gabby ripping the black armband in the manga, but the scene in the anime cuts to more bird cages. We see the window behind Gabby as she's standing up. We get a wide shot of Colt talking to Falco. Damn, Falco looks super sad in the manga versus the anime. A lot of smoke was shown in this scene in the anime, but in the manga there was barely any smoke and it made the whole scene a lot more clearer to look at. We don't see Armin with Mikasa in the anime, just Mikasa's head behind a brick wall. Plus we get different angles of Galliard hopping and jumping around Shinganshina, a slight angle change of the Beast Titan throwing more rocks. Plus we don't get to see the wall in this shot. The jaw titan demolished by the Beast Titan's rocks. I do like this angle of Eren walking towards the Beast Titan in the manga. Mappa flipped the scene around of Eren walking towards the Beast Titan with the Beast Titan looking towards Eren. I love the art in the anime versus the manga. We get to see more of the walls in the anime and way more of the fields and the sky and the scenery in the background. Peak's Cart Titan design looks beautifully horrifying in the manga, but in the anime she's covered up by so much smoke that you don't get to appreciate that great Mappa art. Zeke Yeager looks a lot younger in the anime versus the manga as he's looking at the Cart Titan. We don't get to see all of the walls or parts of Shinganshina in the anime, we just see the Jaegerists and the Cart Titan covered in smoke. The angle of Flock from manga to anime is completely flipped around and it's more of a wide shot as well. We see two more Jaegerists in the foreground. Damn, Flock's reaction is so wild in the anime versus the manga, but you don't get to see the other Jaegerists standing beside him. You can clearly see the soldiers firing their weapons towards the Eldian devils. Versus the anime, it's completely blurred out and there's a lot more smoke. While the Beast Titan design is slightly altered from manga to anime, overall perspective and angle is more or less the same. Once again, you do not get to appreciate that great Mappa art of the Cart Titan firing its gun towards the Beast Titan. I think Mappa could have dialed down on the smoke. Peaks covering one eye in the anime versus the manga, she's looking with two eyes, plus you do get to see that great Mappa art of the Cart Titan's skull, but the gun isn't shown in the anime. The art of Magath about to fire is so damn amazing in the anime. Mappa made the hole where the Beast Titan got shot way more bigger and way more dramatic. I do like the extra detail of the POV shot of the Beast Titan. Connie is shown on the other side of the chimney, and all four of them have wild expressions in the manga. But in the anime, they don't seem to really care too much about Zeke Yeager. Eren's Titan design versus anime and manga are completely different. His face is way more longer and pointier. This shot of Eren glaring at Zeke is way more clearer in the anime. It truly shows you how freaked out Eren was when he potentially lost his key to freedom. The angle of Yelena looking up at Zeke is a little bit different. It's tilted in the manga. They changed some of the angles of the Beast Titan doing a swan dive towards the bottom of the walls, and as he comes crashing down, there's a lot of shaky cam and dust. Reiner is actually shown standing up in the manga versus the anime. He's still kneeling down. Plus, it looks like Galliard is looking at the action versus the anime. He's taking a little Titan nap. Peak's hands are quite close to her face in the manga, plus her character art looks a little bit more rounder in the face in the anime. You get to see more of Maga's machinery on top of Peak versus the manga. You see both of Zeke's eyes in the manga, but in the anime you just get to see that one eye on the right hand side. In the first few pages of chapter 119, one of the soldiers is pointing at Reiner to go ahead and stop Eren Yeager. Reiner's face is way more wild and frantic in the manga versus the anime, plus more Titan markings shown in the anime. I much prefer this shot of Eren walking towards the Beast Titan in the manga versus the anime. We get way too many close-up shots of that Shingeki no Kyojin. My boy looks like a demon in this shot. Colt is shown looking at Falco as they're running towards the Beast Titan, but in the anime, all three of them are looking forward. And that's about it. Tell me in the comments down below what you guys thought of these changes from manga to anime. Did you like them? Did you hate them? Did Studio Mappa do a good job adapting the last few pages of chapter 117, all of 118, and the first 2 pages of 119? Tell me. Like, sub for more Attack on Titan reactions, reviews, comparisons, breakdowns, and reviews. Thank you for watching, and as always, Aborted Reviews signing out.